Just a second. Yeah. Welcome to the inaugural session of Chair Poetry Evenings, Kolkata's International Poetry Festival. And we have someone with us today who needs no introduction, but still to add a few words about him. He's a poet, novelist, and playwright. His novel, The Famished Road, won the Booker Prize in 1991. His works have been translated into 26 languages. His books have won numerous international prizes. He also wrote the film script for the film N, The Madness of Reason. He is an honorary fellow of Mansfield College, Oxford. His book, Astonishing the Gods, was chosen by the BBC as one of the most influential novels written over the last 300 years. He was born in Nigeria and lives in London. His latest novel is The Freedom Artist. His latest book, a volume of stories, is Prayer for the Living. And a new collection of poems, A Fire in My Head, is due to be published at the end of the year. Dear all, we are elated to have with us today Ben Okri. Welcome, Ben. At the very outset,
it's a real pleasure to be here.
At the very outset, I would like to, of course, I have a lot of questions in mind, but I would like to start with your poems first. Can you please read a couple of poems from your upcoming book, A Fire in My Head, and also tell a bit about the background of this book or your inspiration behind penning this book? Ben.
Thank you very much, Sonnet. I just want to say to all of India, it's a real pleasure to be here. It's still daylight here in London, and we're entering a very new phase of lockdown. So everything is done from the house, as you can imagine. And I'm very pleased to be in contact with you all at this historic period of our lives. I'm going to read to you from my new book of poems called A Fire in My Head, which is a collection of political and intimate, tender love poems, more political poems that I have written and been collecting these last number of years. It's a very concentrated collection, full of rage and a lyrical response to the issues of our times. The first poem I'm going to read is called Finding the Present, an extract. The present moment began with fire, and still it burns. It began with water, and still they drown on the margins of Europe. It began with air. See how they flee, see how the bombs fall on houses made of sand, dreams made of flesh, the blind drones of remote war. But it began with earth, where all destinies are one, but many perish for want of justice or soap or flowers instead of fears. Our age is confused. The world runs ahead while humanity falls behind, trampled on by juggernauts whose names are the fearsome powers. Across borders and nations, a new web of chains within the greatest horizons the world has ever known. Water itself resists oppression. Press her down too much, and she erupts with unexpected force somewhere else. We are all on a great ship that has lost its balance, lost its way. And a huge storm is gathering beyond the iron veil of our hearts. Maybe it's a storm of revelation, maybe it's a storm of truth of which art is the unknown magus. The age is changing. This present moment is itself constantly revealing. Everything we see is the mask of time concealing its features. Come with me through the mask into the rights of vision and truth. Come with me into the blue garden. New time is being made here from the wandering sleep of dreamers. Shadows on the cave walls walk to and fro. Shadows on the city walls come and go. Shadows in the garden, shadows in the garden, shadows in the shadows.
Wonderful.
Next poem I'm going to read is a love poem. Called Slept Badly. Slept badly. Worked all morning. I love the view from your window. Jewels scattered in the night. I want to see the view from your heart. Magic connections will abound. High force set in motion. In spite of what you think, high force set in motion. Connecting above and below. Above in the unseen, below in the unknown. I drift in and out of your essence, reading the runes of your soul. Different inside from outside. Learning a new language of your faraway breathing. Destiny changes with those secret lines running through all the webs far beyond the sphere of time, where the ones who see beyond our realm see when the true genesis of touch bears astounding fruit. Oh, how to be ready when the dove hovers over the unwilling mind. Must you yield up the millennial ideas of sacrifice? They know there's no sacrifice where there's love. Just a giving and an altar offering, without a name and without a measure. Who can measure the view from your heart? I sit at its window, and the enigma of the twilight city makes sense to me as the movement of the wind over the face of the water. Watch the links multiply till a flower is formed. Can you give birth to a flower? Can you give birth to the new self that's forming from the enigma? A clear form, mysterious to behold, beautiful as a dawn over those blue mountains? What is magic? Touching and giving birth to worlds. Dreaming and for the real to be in doubt. Loving and being calm so that all becomes clear like the evanescent form of an angel. Slept badly. Worked all morning. All I have is a certain gaze of yours and the way when leaving, you take all of you with you. And me at the window, dreaming. I want to see the view from your heart.
That was mesmerizing. Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
As
Should
far
we,
as I have read of yours, Ben, your writings have the power to evoke a lot of faith. I'm not talking about the erudite or academic definitions of faith here, of course. But I feel that someone who reads your work is a person before reading it, as you also said in one of your interviews, like how a book should be. And he's transported to a different level or dimension after reading that. What are your thoughts on this? What has been your background of such a deep thought procedure?
Sonny, that's a very difficult question. You're asking me to give a kind of history of my aesthetic and spiritual and political development in 5 minutes on Zoom.
Just in a nutshell, if you can.
I'll try. For me, for as far back as I can remember, I've always been interested in the dimensions of life that we see and the dimensions of life that we don't see. I grew up like many of you in a world of myths. We're losing the power of myths in our time. But I grew up in a world of myths and a world of stories. I grew up on the eve of the Nigerian Civil War. I grew up on the borders between great wealth and poverty. I grew up in the margins between royalty and being an ordinary citizen. Many worlds come together in me. And I've been compelled by life to contemplate death and what's beyond death. Life, its meaning, the effect of justice on people, the way in which society marginalizes, oppresses, raises, just the various justices and injustices of the world. I've been compelled to take a great interest in myth because of the deep way in which it resonates our lives. And for me, poetry connects all of these worlds, even when I write prose.
Okay, Bren, thank you. Of course, it was great hearing such a long history in such short words. Can I go back to your poetry? And after that, Sarabjeet would take it from here. Like, can I hear some more of your poems?
Yes, that'll be a pleasure. What I'll do is I'll read some early poems. I'll go back to some of my first books of poems I ever published. And the first one is a book called An African Elegy. And in some ways, it's one of my favorites. I'll read a poem called An Undeserved Sweetness, which was about the time when I knew what it was like to see the streets from 4 o'clock in the morning. An undeserved sweetness. After the wind lifts the beggar from his bed of trash and blows him to the empty pubs at the road's end, there exists only the silence of the world before dawn and the solitude of trees. Handel, on the set, mysteriously recalls to me the long, hot nights of childhood spent in malarial slums in the midst of potent shrines at the edge of great seas. Dreams of the past sing with the voices of the future. And the world is assaulted with a sweetness it doesn't deserve. Flowers sing with the voices of absent bees. The air swells with the vibrant solitude of trees who nightly whisper of re-invading the world. But the night bends the trees into my dreams, and the stars fall with their fruits into my lonely, world-burnt hands.
Wonderful.
Should I read one or two more short ones?
Please.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. This one I'm going to read is called My Mother Sleeps. It's from a book of mine called Wild. I used to come visit my mother when she was alive. And she used to come visit me, rather, when she was alive. And I was in London. She'd come all the way from Nigeria and would sleep on my sofa on the day that she arrived, very tired. And one day I just watched her sleep, and I wrote this poem. And since she's passed away, so the title My Mother Sleeps refers to two kinds of sleep. My mother is sleeping on my battered armchair. It is night, and I have become a child again. I remember her in my childhood years, sleeping in dark corners where the rats chew the Gary sacks in our hot little room, or on wooden chairs in the green darkness, or on cement platforms near the gutter of the unforgiving street through the unhappy nights and the suffering years. The remembrance rouses in me dreams of strength and dreams of fear. I watch over her as she gently sleeps. The soft dreams flutter her eyelids. Her quiet breathing and the blessedness of kindly eyes that are shut tight and the parted lips soothe my anxious soul. She is travel weary and has found her son. How patiently she stayed awake all those years, watching over us in our heaving, worrisome sleep of childhood, watching our future become our past. Now that she sleeps in my battered armchair, I know that she dreams well. I am watching over her. My turn has come round at last.
Wonderful. Ben, it's great to see you.
Real pleasure.
I've noticed your poems have an inherent incantatory element. It's as if you dream them up in full and pass them on to the world with minimal or almost no changes. Is that how it is?
Yeah, I wish that were how it were. That would be lovely. I just be pouring them out every day very easily. No, they sometimes come out, and I have to work to shape them. Sometimes I'll have a line, and it'll be weeks and months before I'll have another line. Poetry for me really consists of three really great things: profound listening, a really deep listening, and an ability to go over your lines, your words, till you can see past your own roughness and your own imperfection in the face of a gifted inspiration. And the third thing that it calls for me is love. Love for the love for the difficulty, because poetry is a difficult art.
Right. When in an interview you tell the world about the day you became a writer, see, you were alone in the house and it was raining, and you wrote a poem that transformed everything for you. How do you manage to bring the unfailing power of that day's downpour into everything you write? I mean, everything.
Well, you're very kind. Very kind question. I really don't know. I know that day changed my life. It was the first day of really genuine solitude I had to ask myself a really important question: what kind of artist was I going to be? I knew that I was going to be an artist. I trained to be a scientist, but I knew that I really was an artist at heart. And that day gave me the chance to ask the question. And it was a choice between painting, between art and literature. It literally was. And the gods were with me that day and guided me just right. I wrote a poem. The poem was okay, came out easily. And I did a drawing, and I worked really hard at the drawing. Looking back now, I should have maybe chosen art because of the difficulty that was involved in that drawing. But I was charmed by the simplicity and the truth and the ease with which the poem came out of me. It was the first time it had happened like that. And that woke up my soul and my thirst. And ever since then, I write from the same place. I write from the same depth of truth. I never write from a shallow impulse. It's, you know, if it doesn't stir my soul, I really don't think one should bother, you know, putting it on paper to trouble other people with. If it doesn't come from some deep place in you, I'm a great believer in Goethe's motto that you should take your hand and thrust it deep into life, into your life, into the life around you, and that's what I try to do. Not easy. Sometimes your hands get burnt, of course, when you thrust it into life. Life is so hot, you've got to look for something really cool to calm your hand in. But that's what you do.
Your words have evoked the source from where you see creation begins. We believe you are a poet writing novels rather than a novelist writing poems. What do you say?
Well, I began with poetry. My birth as a writer was through love poems. I wrote 100 love poems to someone who was not terribly interested at the time. Thank goodness. So I began with poetry, and poetry for me is the root of everything I do. People have a misunderstanding of poetry. People think poetry is just fancy language. People think poetry is this dense, almost flowery, constant lyricism. But poetry can be mysteriously simple and calm as the face of the river. Poetry can look like a thing made in nature, by nature, like a tree. Poetry can fluoresce, poetry can burn and dance, but poetry can also just be really calm and simple and mysterious, like a natural thing in the world. And when you think of poetry as a kind of relationship with life, a kind of relationship with the spirit, a kind of relationship with truth, in the most intense language and the truest expression, then you understand what I'm saying when I say that poetry is at the root of everything that I do. Whenever I have difficulty with writing, I just have to lean towards my poetic side, and things wake up.
That's brilliant, Ben. Can you please read the poem An African Elegy from your first book?
Okay, I was going to read it anyway, but very, very kind of you to ask. It's the title poem of the volume. African Elegy. We are the miracles that God made to taste the bitter fruits of time. We are precious, and one day our suffering will turn into the wonders of the earth. There are things that burn me now, which turn golden when I'm happy. Do you see the mystery of our pain? That we bear poverty and are able to sing and dream sweet things? And that we never curse the air when it is warm, or the fruit when it tastes so good, or the lights that bounce gently on the waters. We bless things, even in our pain. We bless them in silence. That is why our music is so sweet. It makes the air remember. There are secret miracles at work that only time will bring forth. I too have heard the dead singing, and they tell me that this life is good. They tell me to live it gently, with fire, and always with hope. There is wonder here, and there is surprise in everything the unseen moves. The ocean is full of songs. The sky is not an enemy. Destiny is our friend.
That was brilliant, Ben. In fact, it's your very own words that make the air remember. You believe in the alchemy that only dreams make possible. How do you suggest that we keep dreaming when the times are hard as they are now?
I would say that it's, especially when times are hard, that we need to keep dreaming. But you have to understand that when I use the word dreaming, I'm not referring to what you do when you fall asleep at night. When I refer to dreaming, I'm talking of an active creative faculty of the mind, the capacity to imagine alternatives, the capacity to see how things can be different, the capacity to literally dream the future into the present. I think it's one of the most powerful, one of the most mysterious, and one of the most civilizing and magical of all of our faculties. And it is exactly in difficult times that we need to dream. It's exactly in difficult times that we need to be artists of the spirit. Exactly in these times, we need transcendence. Because what survives difficult times is not our toughness or our will. What survives difficult times is our spirit, is our soul, is the special thing in us, the special fire, the special light in us, the special love, the deep wisdom of the flesh, the deep hunger of the spirit for a higher and a better life. We create time with our mind and with our spirit. We create our future out of the depths of ourselves. People know what dreaming is when times are difficult. I know what I'm talking about because I've gone through many difficult times in my life, personal and national. So I know that the people who survive them are the people who are able to reach not only into resilience, but able to reach into the capacity to reimagine time.
Ben, can you read one poem especially for these difficult times?
That's a big challenge, but I'll try. I'm going to choose a poem from a book of mine called Mental Fight, which was published in 1999 on the very eve or cusp of the millennium. The new era is already here. Here, the new time begins anew. The new era happens every day. Every day is a new world, a new calendar. All great moments, all great eras are just every moment and every day writ large. Thousands of years of loving, failing, killing, creating, surprising, oppressing, and thinking ought now to start to bear fruit to deliver their rich harvest. Will you be at the harvest among the gatherers of new fruit? Then you must begin today to remake your mental and spiritual world and join the warriors and celebrants of freedom, realizers of great dreams. You can't remake the world without remaking yourself. Each new era begins within. It is an inward event with unsuspected possibilities for inner liberation. We could use it to turn on our inward lights. We could use it to use even the dark and negative things positively. We could use the new era to clean our eyes, to see the world differently, to see ourselves more clearly. Only free people can make a free world. Infect the world with your light. Help fulfill the golden prophecies. Press forward the human genius. Our future is greater than our past.
That was wonderful, Ben. Your writing
Thank
is
you.
the place where magical connections happen. Sonnet has a question for you.
Thank you.
Hi, Ben. It is such a nice feeling to listen to your poems. I wish I could go on listening to you for the night. I have a question in my mind. I was reading somewhere that you consider Tagore to be an influence in your life. Since this is Kolkata's International Poetry Festival and Tagore hails from the same city, can you please tell us that how and what has been his influence in your life?
Tagore. Tagore is one of those poets that you encounter. Well, I encountered much later in my life than I would have liked to. I would have liked to have known Tagore as a child. He is a poet that you need to have in your bloodstream very early, because he is a poet of beauty and a poet of vision. He's a poet in the old sense of the word, poet encapsulating, capturing, and embracing the largeness of the human spirit, sometimes going even beyond the confines of the nation's moods, dreams, and aspirations to speak to all of humanity in a very gentle way. I first encountered Tagore properly in my late 20s, and I discovered him through his poetry rather than his short stories or his novels. And it's his poems that I continue to constantly come back to. I think of him as a deeply renewing poet. He's a poet you go back to when your life has clouded over, when you've lost your way, when you've forgotten a little bit what you're supposed to be doing here. He's a poet of renewal and a poet who reconciles you with nature and with life, with its difficulty and with its beauty, with its duty and its beauty, to borrow one of his own lines. Yeah, I have Tagore up there with Yeats, Rilke, maybe sometimes Neruda, among the poets of the modern, who speak to both the prophetic and the intimate. Yeah. Respect and salute. Respect and salute to the great man.
That was
Nice to hear.
Yes, Sonnet.
So nice to hear that, Ben, from your mouth. And to wrap up this session, I would like to end this session with a poem of yours again. So, of course, we don't have much time in hand, but let us end here with one of your poems.
What do you want? Do you want a short poem? I'll choose a very short poem. Yes, I think
yes,
so.
Sure.
This is a poem from my first book of poems called An African Elegy, and I don't read it often, so this is a pleasure. and is called And Anyone Who Doesn't. And anyone who doesn't tremble at the gates of reality will be broken by what they encounter in the city and its secret dungeons and its history, which keeps rising. At the gate of each unnameable reality, it is possible to lose a fear and an illusion. It is possible to witness miracles in your life by surprising your destiny.
That was brilliant, Ben. Your presence, even if virtual, has really enriched us, and we feel blessed to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's been a blessing sharing this moment with you.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank
we
you.
would start our next session in about 10 minutes, with Vijay Sheshadri, Ashok Vajpayee, Twin Somets, Keki Daruwala, and Kaveh Akbar. Thank you again. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone,
Bless.
for being
Thank
there.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bless.
Thank you.